This is the industrial side. Most industrial businesses are either won or lost in the day-to-day operations. These are conversations with the operators who run these firms, talking about how they run them, what works, and what doesn't.
Anderson Lemos, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, Brian. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been feeling a little bit sick. I feel like for whatever reason, I'm always feeling worse the days that I'm supposed to talk to somebody for a podcast. But when I decide not to be lazy and not to cancel it, I still end up having great conversation. So I'm still happy to talk to you today.
Let's go. Hopefully I bring some energy to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I'm just a nerd. So I start getting people on to get excited about business and kind of where they play in the market. The nerdiness in me comes out.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well,
Same. I get fired up as soon as we start talking about manufacturing. I'm like, let's go. I'm in.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. Actually liking what you do makes it all worth it. So What do you do? Let's start with that. Let people know. What do you do?
That's great. So Anderson is obviously my name there. I've been in manufacturing for, roughly 17 years now. I started in manufacturing. I was kind of telling you earlier, I just needed a weekend job. Wasn't like something I really knew. I had no idea how things were made or had never thought about it. But I ended up picking up a weekend job. It was at a manufacturing plant, and they had a ton of what was software needs, which I didn't think existed inside of manufacturing. I started helping them with their software. At the time, I was going to school for IT and computer programming, and I ended up in manufacturing for the next 17 years, spent about 10 years on the manufacturing floor, manufacturing engineer, application engineer, all of the above, and then moved over into the commercial side of the business. And that's how we end up here today. I work in sales and manufacturing, and I help customers price their products and the goods that they're manufacturing, whether it's equipment or for CNC machines or a big product that they're selling, whatever it is, it's their, and especially in their aftermarket goods and parts. That's what I do. I help customers and help them price so that their manufacturing plants are producing good margins and that their business is healthy and that they're increasing their P&Ls and that they're able to continue thriving and doing what manufacturing needs to do in America today.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I think that probably anybody who's ever tried to buy a product, one of the first 3 questions is how much.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like pricing is really talked about that much. I mean, what's talked about more is like cold calling someone or using the right AI tools or doing the right marketing. But literally, there's basically nothing easier you can do to increase your revenue besides just making something cost more.
Yeah, literally. I was just reading a study on it the other day, like the impact of pricing. I think it was McKinsey who posted it, but they said that a 1% increase in price equals an 8% increase in profit and margins usually.
Yeah.
Just because, your price went up, but your cost and your other attributes that go into your margin didn't.
Yeah.
We know that costs are going up every day, but that span is an 8x return. So it's super important. It's a lever that's really under leveraged in manufacturing for the whole, history of it.
And why do you think that is? Because I think there's certain things, and this is maybe like, sometimes it's a good thing, something is a bad thing to think about things how you would as a customer when you're on the other side. But you look at kind of the situation when, the time of this recording, Strait of Hormuz, gas prices going up. Every gas station company is just like, all right, we're going to raise it by 50 cents right now, today, tomorrow. We're going to raise it by $1. We are not going to eat these costs or we're not going to exist. And all of driving around are so used to that. Anytime there's some sort of a global macro event that impacts the pricing of gas, that there's really not a lot of pushback on the station. I don't really blame BP, Shell. I don't blame Marathon, Sheets. I don't think that they're doing anything bad or they're trying to be greedy. And I don't necessarily shop around, to be honest. Maybe I should, but I just, if it's convenient, it works. I know that the prices of the costs are moving up. So I just accept that I have to pay more. But we just don't expect, when we're facing the same pressures as manufacturers, that we have the right to do the same thing. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's such a great, observation. Yeah, it's exactly right. Like pricing in manufacturing is kind of one of those things, you hear it often in manufacturing. We've always done it this way, right? Mm-hmm. Pricing is inherited. It's not designed in manufacturing. If we look at, like you're talking about gas stations, like why is there a digital board out front that has their price? Like, why isn't it just written down? right?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't they just put a permanent sign? Well, because it's designed to move. It's designed to change every minute. And it's the same, like if you look at Amazon or what we were talking about earlier with their prices, right? Like they put their prices and they change it based on inventory. If the weather changes, they change their price. If they're not selling enough of something, they change their price. If they're selling too much of something, they change their price. In manufacturing, we don't really do that, right? But I think exactly what you were saying is that today's market and the volatility, tariff wars, et cetera, has pushed manufacturing owners, especially P&L, those who own the P&L and the business and the CFOs, to talk about it, to reevaluate their approach. They're feeling a ton of pain, but oftentimes they don't even know that it's an option, right? They don't even know, they haven't even looked at the data to look at their pricing. I like the analogy of like pricing is like a smoke detector battery. It's like we all know it's important, but nobody wants to change it until the thing is beeping. It's like I have this smoke detector in my house is going off a couple weeks ago. My wife's yelling at me, and finally I was like, I got to go get the ladder. I got to go up this stupid thing and change this battery. But we shouldn't be that way. We should look at it positively, right? Like if you look at in manufacturing, if you look at, for example, the OEMs like that are making new equipment, their margins on their new machines are not huge. They're a couple percentage points, maybe 10%, right? It's a slim margin, but it's obviously a healthy business. But their aftermarket, their parts business has huge margins. 30%. Sometimes it's 15, 30, sometimes even more percent of their revenue is actually the aftermarket. So why would we not look at those prices and understand, right? It's like the printer versus the ink, right? You sell the printer and you hope that the customer buys it so that they can continue buying ink for it. My wife just changed the ink on our printer today. Now, imagine that printer is a CNC machine or an equipment or, a tractor or something that we manufactured. That thing's going to be around for 20 years. And if you underprice the parts on it, you just messed up your revenue for 20 years and you're not going to change it, Yeah. So like you should reevaluate. You should look at the pricing. You should know your position. You should change it. And it should be a positive thing.
Yeah, but a lot of it is fear. Like what if we change the price and we lose everybody? Because, some of us took economics classes. I did kind of a long time ago. And I remember the supply and demand curve. When the price goes up, the demand goes down in certain types of markets. So it's like there's that fear of losing something. But I mean, I think one thing I've been thinking about recently is that while there's this like almost like positive goal in not wanting to raise prices to disrupt the customer, you can disrupt the customer a lot more ways than your pricing. You could have bad service. You could be slow. You could be making mistakes. You could have poor product. And the thing that will drive you towards that is trying to cut costs. So it's like it's chicken or the egg. If you're so worried about the costs that you have applying to your own customers in terms of your pricing, that you're like eating more costs yourself, you're becoming basically you're destroying value. Basically, you're becoming a worse company. So there's kind of have to have the mindset of like, there's more than one downside. It's not pleasant to say, hey, yesterday I told you this was 300 and now it's 400. But I mean, sometimes the goal should be to provide the best product and not necessarily to not be uncomfortable. And I think that's where pricing makes people uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable. When someone asks me how much something costs, my voice starts to change a little bit, start to get a little more timid, start to look down a little bit. It's uncomfortable, but it's a part of delivering value as manufacturers. Manufacturers create real products. That means they create real value. Understanding that you need to capture the right amount of value for what you're doing is important.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's the water bottle analogy, right? Like the water bottle that you buy at Costco is 25 cents. The water bottle you buy at the game is $7.
Yeah.
And you're it's the experience, Hey, I'm going to have a water and I'm going to pay $5 for it because I need it. And because it's valuable, because I'm at the basketball game right now, or I'm at the baseball game with my son, or wherever I am, and so it's like it's a value thing.
And you're not going to leave the baseball game to go over to Aldi's, put your quarter in, go to the water section, buy water, and then come back to the
exactly.
You care about something more at that point.
Exactly.
It's a in some ways.
Yeah.
No, so that's good. Exactly. I really agree with you on that. But I think the next question would be just kind of like, how do you actually put that into practice? Because if I'm running, let's say, aftermarket transmissions company, I'm going to be like thinking, well, I've always done it this way too. And like, what company's been growing when I've been doing it this way and not being so focused on pricing. So maybe there's a more comfortable way to basically achieve my growth goals. If I wanted to experiment with this, like what information do you need to be able to actually be more dynamic with pricing and not be reactive?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first, I would actually challenge the thought of like, when we think about pricing, we feel a little uncomfortable, but I would challenge the thought of like, we're going to raise prices. Actually, no, what I'm saying is you need to take a look at your pricing, because I've talked to a lot of companies where they're like, oh yeah, sometimes customers kind of pissed off at our price on certain stuff. And what's happened is you priced it a year ago or 2 years ago or whenever it was. And maybe like, for example, if you price something today and it's made of a petrochemical or it uses petrochemical or it uses a lot of, it's got a long shipping time. And so shipping costs are through the roof or whatever that is.
Mhm.
And you price it today. Well, because of the price of oil today, you're pricing high to begin with. And then 2 years from now, let's say your customer asks you to buy these, I need 100 of these. Well, maybe your price is super high because when you priced it, it was high. And so you're actually causing a negative pricing perception on your company. And you don't even realize it because you're not changing your pricing, right?
Mhm.
So you're actually looking at it. You got to kind of flip it on its head and look at it like, no, I need to do just an analysis of where my pricing is overall and understand that some of my stuff is actually overpriced. And what I see with customers is that actually causes a lot of damage to their business, because if I know that Brian has great prices, I'm going to go buy this, if I'm going to go buy, I don't know, my AirPods case with you because you
Yeah.
have great prices on them. While I'm there, I might pick up a charger cable, or, hey, I need this. And I might pick up a water bottle too while I'm there, right? Because I'm thirsty while I'm in your store. But if your prices I went there one day and your AirPods were drastically overpriced, then I'm like, well, I'm not going to go there because I know his prices are high. So now you're losing the sale on the item, but also on the charger and also on the water you could have sold because of one bad price. So if you position yourself well in the market, I'm not saying you need to be the most expensive. I'm saying you need to provide the most value for your customer. And that's lowering or raising prices. But having that, a lot of these larger manufacturers, I work mostly with enterprise manufacturers, they're looking at it from a pricing perception, right? When I talked about Amazon earlier or Walmart, when you think about Amazon or Walmart, you don't think about, I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I don't go and say, oh, I got to make sure that their pricing's good. I just go on Amazon. I'm like, hey, they probably have the best price. So I'm just going to order this thing and I could have it tomorrow anyway. Right. So like they have ingrained into us this pricing, that their perception that they are the best price. So I would actually challenge manufacturers to look at that, do that sober analysis of where is your pricing today and where are you in the market? What is your pricing perception?
Yeah. And it can be counterintuitive because, that we talked about the fear of feeling like you're being too expensive. There's also a fear of being too cheap and being like, well,
Yeah.
we should be more expensive because we're better. So I don't care what other people are charging. But I guess that comes down to just being able to actually like compare yourself to your competitors in terms of what are they good at and what are you good at? And then how does that feed into the pricing of what people are looking at when they're making a decision about where they're going to get their supplies from?
Yeah, exactly.
And so is that a big part of what you do, like getting that competitive analysis? Because like you mentioned before with the gas example, it's right there in like big, bright, marquee like numbers. Like you can kind of just look around the street and compare gas station prices, but with manufacturing companies, it's a little different. So how do you accomplish, I guess, getting visibility into that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's much harder for manufacturers, right? That's the biggest thing that we talk about. Customers are like, we don't have, how do we even know where we are? So yeah, we look at the market. We help manufacturers. You really break it down. If you're a manufacturer, you break it down into a couple different segments. You have your commercially available parts. Those are parts that multiple people can sell. So yes, in that scenario, we would look at the market. We would say, hey, there's 10, 20, 30 other people selling this. There's maybe some different part numbers. There's some different special part numbers, manufacturing part numbers, that kind of complexity. That's what makes it really hard to understand pricing as a whole. We pull all that data for customers and we look at it and we say, okay, here is where you stand in the market on your competitive parts. But then we also learn that manufacturers have proprietary parts or semi-proprietary parts. Proprietary parts meaning nobody else makes them. Only I make them. Semi-proprietary, what we're seeing is we have a lot of, let's call it some of our other countries that are competing with us in manufacturing. they're starting to make some stuff that will compete on with the parts that we're manufacturing, right? And so they're semi-proprietary. There may be, it's a hard part, difficult to manufacture, but there are one or two other competitors or things that will fit. Those scenarios, there isn't market data on it, but you do have internal data. You have tribal knowledge, right? The infamous manufacturing tribal knowledge. You have CRM data. You have ERP data. How often are you selling this? How often are you quoting it versus selling it? If you quoted it 1,000 times and you sold it only once, maybe you're overpriced, right? But if also, you sold 999 out of the 1,000 quotes, maybe that's an opportunity to raise prices, right? Or if prices have been raised in 5 years on a SKU, we have manufacturers who have hundreds of thousands of SKUs. It's very difficult to track all of them. And so they might have a SKU that they haven't raised prices on just because it got lost in the shuffle. So we look at the entire journey of your of your parts portfolio to really understand, okay, not just the market, but your internal data and your internal benchmarking. Here's where it's at. And then we help clients like really understand that from the whole picture and then make pricing decisions from there, right? It's not the traditional approach has been kind of like almost like a blanket, price raises, if you will. So it's like, hey, our cost went up 5%. We're raising our price at 5% across the whole board. And that's how you end up with those scenarios where you have parts that are overpriced in a couple of years or in a couple of months because those have moved differently than others, right? Obviously, commercially available parts will move differently than a proprietary part will.
Yeah, and on that commercially available side, I guess on both sides, because the problem with it is sometimes is that you can't always trust the customer because they'll tell you it's too expensive. Maybe knowing that could lead you to short selling yourself. And so you can end up in a position where you're getting customer feedback. You lost these quotes because you're too expensive, but it could be something. It could be maybe the salesperson is not showing the value in other ways, or maybe the customer is like, to your point, this they're thinking of the way prices were 5 years ago and they're not wise about it. So I guess what I'm wondering is like how much of this is like private data versus stuff that can be discussed with customers in terms of like, here's where, because what I would want to be my team heavily positioned in is like, I know everybody in this market, like this is why we're different than them. They'll charge you around this. We'll charge you around this. This is why we do that. You're welcome to go talk to them, but this is why we do that. This is why we think it makes sense. We'd love to help you. And like, I guess because I'm sure the executives are reviewing the information that you're able to provide in the research, but just like a insider outside salesperson, they can fall victim to just trying to make the customer happy. I can give you a 25% discount. Of
course.
I can I'll hand deliver it myself, so that'll take off the delivery charge. Or like, yeah. So I guess it's like, how do you who needs to know the information and what are people able to share?
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, what you're talking about is having what we like to call like a pricing strategy, right? Like actually having a strategy behind your pricing that's defensible, right? If you just tell your sales guy, hey, this thing costs $1,000 and he or she doesn't really understand why the price went up, then they're kind of on their back foot and they're going to do what they got to do to win the deal. Great. But if you actually give them that information of like, this thing costs $1,000 because of X, Y, and Z, because of the value that you put into it, right? Maybe you have better lead times. Maybe you have better reliability. And then you also give them, hey, no, people can say we're overpriced, but we're not, because here's the market that we're looking at. And you could start having that back and forth with your customer as well. Manufacturing is all about relationships, right? Like people buy from people they like and trust. And so as you have developed that relationship with your customer, if you present them a price, they have an opinion on it like everybody does, right? You might look at a Honda and have an opinion on their price, and that's fine. But it's defendable. It's a reliable car. It's one of the best reliability you can buy. And so you're going to pay that premium versus something else. And so if you arm your salespeople with that same kind of information, you actually see improvement in your business, because that salesperson is then able to have that conversation with the customer. No, here is why our price is what it is. We took a look at the market. Here's where we stand. Sure, there's somebody who's super cheap, but maybe their lead times are longer. You can't trust them. And oftentimes what we see is the customers will go to our customers and say, yeah, you're right. We can't order from them. We tried a couple times and they fell through. But if you are able to do that, you're looking at, we see 5 to 8% improvement in real dollars when pricing strategy is put in place, right? We have customers who have, $50 million parts portfolio who are seeing $2.5, $4 million improvement over year because they put that price strategy in place. They're not just winging it, right? We know today is tough times, so to speak. We CFOs, teams, they're all being asked to do more with less, right? They're having to make efficiencies, grow margins, help the business grow, all that stuff. But they have to figure out how to do it with a predictable and defensible approach, right? That they can't just raise prices. They need that data that helps them say, here's why, here's what we're doing, Mr. Customer. Bring the customer in, show them, you can earn their trust through that. That's what we see with the best companies that have the best pricing strategies in place.
Yeah. And I know you guys are, you're just building out kind of your customer bases and everything that you work with within the manufacturing orgs to address this. But I'd be curious from what you're seeing now, is the misconception wrong in that like maybe optimizing and having a price strategy? I hear that. I think I need to figure out how to charge more. But through like, you don't have to name any companies, but like through the customers you're working with, does it actually end up, it could be more improvements by charging less? Like, I guess, like, what do you see more often?
Yeah, so the charging I'd say it's not too unevenly split. It might be 60-40, maybe 60% are underpriced. And so they need to raise their price, or 60% of their portfolio. I don't want to give you like exact numbers because I'm not sure off the top of my head, but like that's generally prices need to be raised across certain things. And that number will shift drastically between commercially available and proprietary parts. But the underpriced side of it, what customers see is that, hey, I'm overpriced on this. When they're overpriced, they need to lower prices so that they can start selling it again. And so although they're lowering prices, once they lower prices, they'll see customers returning. And then it's the same analogy that I used before. If I'm buying, if you're talking about, I don't know, machine tool, if I'm buying my spindle with you, then I might as well buy the lube and the seals and the bearings that go with it with you, because I'm already here. And so I don't have to go to 3 different vendors to get to replace my machine spindle. So you actually, by lowering price, you're actually picking up additional revenue that you wouldn't otherwise. You would only sell the proprietary part. But now, because important is your pricing perception, because the pricing perception that you gave your customer is that you're not always the most expensive, then you end up picking up sales outside of that as well. So that's what we see as kind of that balance.
Yeah. And I know this is probably a separate area, so you can tell me this isn't stuff you look at, but I'm curious if part of the pricing analysis is like, why do you even have these SKUs? Just don't sell it for anything. Just discontinue the SKU. Because that's a big deal. Like manufacturers, distributors get into that situation a lot where they thought the best way they could add more value to their customers is to be Costco, when really they should be Trader Joe's. They should be really more specific. And so does that fold into the pricing analysis that like, if you potentially lowered or raised your prices, you get X% more, but actually you'd be better off just not even selling this at all. Just cut these 100 SKUs because it's pointless. Like you do not have the strategic position. Like if we're talking about pricing strategy, I think of that in terms of like, if you price this way, you can win. But sometimes it's just like a lose-lose situation. So like, do you ever see that?
Yeah, it's interesting because like every single conversation you ever have with a customer, like let's say they have 100,000 SKUs total. Out of that 100,000, they probably have 20,000 of active SKUs. And then a fraction of that are their actual like money makers. And so if you look at it, it's an 80-20 rule kind of thing. So 80% of those SKUs are, they sell it every other year, maybe every 5 years. There's some that they haven't sold in a while. A lot of times that's not only a pricing problem. It can be a pricing problem. Maybe you would sell 30,000 instead of 20,000 SKUs actively if you had better pricing or a better pricing strategy.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's things that are just like, you made a machine that was 30, 40 years ago but you still have customers using it. And so you need to keep a certain number of these parts in stock to support that machine because you need to support your customer. And so it gets very complex. So it's not always like just cut it and get rid of it. A lot of times, you have to be careful with, it's kind of like the consultant approach, right?
Yeah.
Like when you run a machine shop, when you operate in the lines, like I've had to literally shut down production and start it over and change parts and do all this stuff. And then like go sit down at my desk and figure out, how is this going to affect my P&L? How's this going to affect my production? What does this look like for me? But our clients are very intelligent in that. And so they know like how to look at their business of like, yeah, we have these 80,000 parts that are unused or unsold, but they're still critically important. And so there's some SKUs that they need to get rid of, but there's some SKUs that are just, it's just the cost of doing business, so to speak.
Yeah. It's more complex than that, but yeah, I can see how it would all tie together. That's awesome. I mean, this has been great. I guess last thing would be just kind of what's a big takeaway you think that like folks who are basically at the position of finger in the air, like we priced it like this for 20 years, why change it? Like, what's the incremental steps they can take to being a little bit more strategic and a little bit more informed about how to be better with pricing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, everybody has a process today, right? There's pricing is happening. It's not like we're not asking to do something that nobody's doing. Everybody's doing it. It's a process. It's either inside somebody's head, and that's the extent of the process, or it's probably exactly. It's inside of a spreadsheet somewhere, or you get more advanced and you have a software technology that actually helps you do it intelligently. Like you're somewhere in that journey. What I would say to those customers that are figuring out like, okay, what do I do here, is do a good old gap analysis, right? Figure out where you're at, current state, future state, identify the gap, and then develop an action plan on how to fix it. Like those are you figure out where you're at today and then figure out where you want to be and go fix it, right? So like get started somewhere. It's not necessarily a software solution or a services or anything you need to do, but it's just figuring out where you want to go. I mean, at the end of the day, if your prices can't support your business, then you're not going to be around for too long. And we don't want that. We want to see manufacturing companies in America that are thriving and that are growing and that are doing well, right? We talk about onshoring and reshoring, and we talk about manufacturing, growing in America. And this is how you do it. You do it intelligently, right? So that's what I would say is, pricing is a lever for all these manufacturing businesses that there's a very high likelihood that pricing is being under leveraged in manufacturing today if you're a manufacturing business. And so my challenge to them is, do a sober analysis and find some solutions that'll help you get to a better place in your pricing, that'll help actually use pricing as an advantage to your business.
Yeah, strong point. Well, I appreciate it, Anderson. This has been great. How could people get in touch with you? Like LinkedIn, email? And sometimes people just, they listen to these episodes and they're like, I really need to talk to this guy now. So what's a good way to reach out to you?
Love it. Yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody. I'm an open door policy. I love to chat with people. I'm really passionate about manufacturing. I don't do this as a job. I really do it out of passion, which makes it a lot easier. But LinkedIn is the best place. Find me on LinkedIn, Anderson Lemos at Mark Pilot, and I'd love to chat.
All right. I'll put that in the show notes so people can reach out to you. I appreciate it, Anderson. It's been awesome. Thank you.